I want to talk about strikes, but just before I do, we've got this new Labour announcement of a retention payment for $2,400 for 2 years for teachers. Do you think that's a good policy?
I think that's a good start, yes. I mean, obviously, I'm a teachers' union leader, so any extra money for teachers is a good idea. The problem with bursaries, which is the money that trainee teachers get while they're training, is that there's no requirement for them to stay in the profession. So a 2-year incentive is a good idea. It's a start. Of course, we would want Labour to go much further. We want better salaries for the experienced teachers as well. I mean, there is the government at the moment is sort of moving money towards paying new teachers more. But the problem we have also is experienced teachers are leaving the profession in droves. 40,000 experienced teachers left the profession last year. That's 9% of teachers, all the teachers. 8% of head teachers left last year. It's experience that we're missing in the profession. And so, yes, we need to pay beginning teachers more, but we need to also significantly raise salaries for all teachers.
I did specifically ask about pay for experienced teachers and didn't get anything from Bridget Phillipson. She also didn't say that they would commit to the recommendation of the pay review body for a 6.5% rise for teachers. Is that concerning to you?
Well, she said I was watching outside, she said it would be a starting point, and we hope that what Labour mean by that is, yes, that is a starting point and they would accept it, but...
Don't you think she meant the opposite, that it was a starting point for the teaching side and then...
I didn't see the interview. I would be surprised if that was the case. But the issue is we're not negotiating with Labour. I can't really speculate on what Labour would do because at the moment our dispute is with the current government, the Conservative government, who have Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt and Gillian Keegan have, over the course of the last 2 months in Parliament, proudly proclaimed that they are leaving they are now leaving it up to the independent pay review body. We've had Rishi Sunak in Prime Minister's questions saying we've always implemented the pay review body. Now, we understand that the pay review body has understood that the crisis in teacher supply is now so bad that they've gone beyond the government, what the government says that they want to pay teachers, and recommended 6.5%. And so, as they've exercised their independence, which the government has been lauding for months, now the government is saying something different, which is, we'll consider it in the round. Now, actually, they could have said that during the past few months. They could have said, we're leaving it to the independent pay review body, and we will get their recommendations, we'll consider them. That is not the impression that they've given at all.
Is it because in the last few weeks it's become clear that the economic situation is worse than most people were expecting? The Governor of the Bank of England, for example, Andrew Bailey, telling Ed Conway from Sky a couple of weeks ago that the UK cannot continue to have the current level of wage rises because they're inflationary. Do you have any sympathy with that argument at all?
No, I have no sympathy with that argument at all. The OECD reported last week that it is private sector profits which are driving inflation.
Partly, not entirely.
The majority.
That part of the increase is private sector profits, but I think it is acknowledged by the Bank of England and others that pay comes into it.
Well, public sector pay doesn't produce a price hike at the points of use. Consumers, if they're using state education, don't pay per lesson. Consumers don't, if they're using the National Health Service, pay per time they go. It doesn't feed into cost price rises in the same way that you could argue excessive pay rises in the private sector, although we haven't seen those, feeds into the prices people pay. And the consequences of not paying public sector workers is that they are leaving public service and the services which they provide are collapsing. You have to invest. There's no evidence that public sector pay feeds into inflation. That's just becoming an argument which the government is now using in another attempt.
Well, that's what the Bank of England say as well, right?
Well,
not just the government.
The Bank of England governor on $500,000 a year can say, he's quite at liberty to say that teachers who earn on average less than £40,000 a year shouldn't get a pay rise. I'm not going to take lessons from him.
Now, the NEU is striking again 5th and 7th of July. We've already had multiple days of strikes this year. How long are you prepared to keep striking for?
Well, we don't want to go on strike, and what I want to do on this programme is apologise to parents and, you know, to say that the last thing that teachers want to do is lose 2 more days' wages, they're not being paid enough as it is, and to disrupt their children's education any further. But, you know, we are at a crisis point. I've given you the number of teachers leaving the profession. That's bad enough, they're leaving. This year, the government is going to miss its secondary training place numbers by 50%, over 50%. We have 1 million children being taught in classes of over 30. We have the highest class sizes, amongst the highest in the developed world, alongside Brazil, Colombia and Mexico, our class sizes. We have children routinely being taught by teachers who are not teaching in the subject area that they even have an A-level in. We have a staffing crisis in our schools. There is a crisis every day in our schools. And if you don't meet the Secretary of State for Education for months when you're in dispute, how else are my members else meant to say we can't carry on like this anymore?
Are children still getting a good education? Do you have confidence in that?
The children are getting the very best education that teachers can give them. Teachers work the most unpaid overtime of any profession, working weeks of 55 hours and over. But how much better could we do if education was funded properly and if there were enough teachers and head teachers to teach and lead schools?
Just while I've got you, there's one other story that I would like to get your view on. It's this row between Catherine Birbalsingh, who is a head teacher of a school in London, and Jess Phillips, who she's accused of racism. She said she subscribes to the idea that Black and Asian individuals in public life owe a duty to voice opinions that match with the left-wing view of the world. Now, this is a genuine question. I just think that some of our viewers would say that they have an impression that teaching unions are of the left and that there's a lot of people in teaching who are of the left. Do you think there is an acceptance of teachers who have views that are politically from the right?
Yes, I do think. I mean, I taught for a long time in schools, and you meet teachers of every political persuasion and none. Although I have to say that politics isn't something that's routinely discussed in staff rooms. It's usually your lesson and what's happened and things like that. Yes, I think that teachers of the right have had a very, very strong influence on government policy. They're the ones which are routinely brought in to be part of the focus groups, the discussion groups, the advisory groups. You know, so, yeah, I mean, my union isn't politically affiliated. We go to the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, the Greens. We're the only union that goes to and has a stand at the Conservative Party. We try to engage with all parties. So, yes, I think there is an acceptance. I don't think there is any... rather, the reverse in terms of government policy, that teachers with right-wing political views have had a disproportionate influence on government over the last 12 years. And teachers, you know, who are centre ground or of the left, who are saying sensible things, have just been dismissed as the blob.
Do you have sympathy for Catherine Birbalsingh in this row that she's having?
Well, I actually wasn't aware of this row, so I'd need to.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't want to say anything particular because I'm not aware of that. But on a general point, it's certainly not the case that teachers with right-wing views have been ignored by this government.
Sure. Thank you very much. It's been really good having the studio this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.